Hey, it's Jason. Welcome to episode 4 of this video series about putting together a kit guitar in my apartment for someone who has never done it before with just ordinary hand tools. Last time we did the clear coating. It's been about a week, so it's all cured by now. And I want to go ahead and do the wiring and then put some of the hardware on the body. Before that, I will put on some conductive copper tape into all of the cavities of the body, which is supposed to keep out any sort of extraneous signals that will cause hum. I don't know how loud this guitar is going to be because I haven't been able to test out the pickup yet. But P90s are generally pretty loud. If this can quiet the noise a little bit, I think that will be good for everybody, really. So with that, let's get electric. So the easiest way it seemed to find the shape and size of the bottom of the control cavity was to measure it against the cover. Still a pain in the ass to actually get in there right, though. For the sides, I just cut some small pieces. The control cavity was the one part that I knew needed to be shielded. What was unclear was if the pickup cavity and or the hole for the output jack needed to be shielded. Better safe than sorry, so I did it all. Leave the edges going over the side and I can shave them off with a razor blade. Poke those holes back. I actually took a picture of the cavity before I started shielding it, just in case I forgot where the holes were. I didn't have to look at it, luckily. I remembered. And shield the back of the cavity cover as well. That will complete the Faraday cage that's supposed to keep the signal out. Onto the pickup cavity. Same thing. This one had lots of little corners that I hadn't quite gotten, so I had to keep going to any sort of little scrap that I had to fill it in. It helps to take something like a pencil eraser and rub along the tape, and especially in the corners. I went a little crazy with the razor blade. It didn't need to be that short. I sort of forgot that the pickup cover extends a bit out from the cavity. I'd already committed to doing the output jack hole, but it turned out to be the hardest of the three. But I got it in there. And it just had to stick out enough that it overlaid the control cavity so that would connect the two and ground them. Between the control cavity and the pickup cavity, though, I would have to run a wire through the routing and solder it down at each side so that all of the taped surfaces would be in contact with each other. And here's what it looked like at the end. There's the control cavity, the output jack, and the pickup cavity. Might as well move on to the electrics. So the first thing to do was to run a wire just to connect the pickup cavity shielding with the control cavity shielding. I'll just stick it in the corner here. That seems to be out of the way. Now, since the pickup cords also have to go through this tiny little passageway, I'll put them all in first. Then I will solder the grounding wire down. I'm calling it a grounding wire, but that's probably not right. It's really just the connector wire that connects one to the other. Keep the pickup out of the way. I wrapped it up so I could make sure not to damage the body. Time to solder. The only soldering I'll have to do for this whole project, because the wiring harness that they supplied was already stuck together. So the camera's not close enough that you can see in detail what's going on, but if you want to learn how to solder, there are better videos than this. I'm sitting on my window seat here, and I've got the window cracked because you do not want to be stuck in a not very well ventilated room with a smoking soldering iron and solder. And connect it in the control cavity on the other side. Find another spot that seems like it'll be out of the way of all the other electronics that I'll have to put in. That's the top of my head. And I'll just tape this wire here to help hold it in place while I solder. Man, do I need a haircut. I'll prop it up a little bit. I'm trying to solder it to the side. I'm not sure how hard that's going to be, but get gravity working for me at least a little bit. Hey, down in front. And here's what it looked like when it was done. That's the control cavity solder and the pickup cavity solder. And it was in there nice and firm. I'll test the conductivity to make sure that all of the different sections are connected. Just by touching within each cavity, I'll just touch on each side, make sure that the signal is there. And since I know that the output jack hole is connected to the control cavity hole, all I have to do to test the pickup is pick up to the output jack. Let's put the pickup in. Here's my little springy pads. Screw that puppy in there. Now remember, I had some issues with the wiring harness. I couldn't figure out how everything went together. Here's the jack, here's the tone knob, here's the volume knob. This is where the pickup plugs in. This appears to be the ground wire, but then there was this thing that I couldn't figure out what to do with. It's got a connector that doesn't have a matching end. I don't think we need it. Let's get rid of it. This is much easier than soldering. And the bridge wire feeds through this separately drilled hole where it pops out here at the bridge post. And having that in contact with the bridge post, which then is in connection with the strings, which is in connection with my hand, will keep the whole system grounded. Put these star washers with the teeth on this side of the pots. Pull that output jack out of the way. And then on the other side of the knob goes this washer, followed by a nut. And that's got to be pretty tight so the pot doesn't start spinning around. Now for this, you just kind of want the end just below the surface of the body. And when you drive the bridge post in, it'll keep it in there, pressed up against it without coming out. Bridge post bushings in. It's a really tight fit, so this definitely needed to be hammered in. I got my little rubber mallet. And I'll protect it. I'll put this rag over it. Now, if you remember back in episode 1, I had trouble lowering the action enough. And I realized as I was doing this, putting these bushings in, there was actually a lot more space. These things could go down a lot further. So to drive them in further, I'll use the rag to protect it. I'll also use this piece of wood so that the hammer's not too close to the body. And then drive it in. And good news is the post went in a lot further, so I don't think I'll have as much problem with the action. The bad news is the wood that I was using to protect the body left a mark. A few marks, actually. You could see under the pickup and then just off the side. So I wasn't sure what to do with that. Do I just live with it? This is a beater guitar. This is my first, not even first guitar. It's my mistake guitar. But looked online, asked a bunch of people, and although it looked like this trick with an iron and a wet rag might only work if it's raw wood, or at least there's not layers of clear coat on top, but I figured, hey, it's not going to make it any worse, really, so I'll go ahead and try it. So I just dampened the cloth, laid it down there, heated up the iron, and ran it over. Keep it moving. You got to make sure that it doesn't dry out and start burning the rag. And every once in a while, just taking it off, wiping it off, see how it's going. And I did this for probably 10 minutes. And when I was done, I was amazed how well it worked. I mean, it's still there, but it's a lot less noticeable. I'm going to keep the ones under the bridge. No one's going to see it. It'll be nice to have those battle scars there to remember. Testing the pickups. The volume seems to work. When I turn the volume down, there's a hum, but I'm hoping that will disappear when all the shielding is set up and the grounding. And the tone knob sounds like it's doing something. It's hard to tell just whapping a screwdriver against the pickup, but the tone seems to be changing. Jack plate on. Little shielding tape sticking out. In my mind, the plate was bigger than it actually is, but I can take that off with a razor blade. And the knobs go on. And just put them on so that when it's turned all the way up, the 10s are facing you when you're looking down. So all the way down, 0. All the way up, 10. They're a little high off the body, but they actually feel fine, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. Seal up the Faraday cage. I love taking that tape off. Looks so pretty. Posts in. Pick guard. After the fact, I realized that the screws I was using might not be the right ones. They look really big. And there were some smaller ones, but I've been using those during the dry build for the tuning machines. So I'll wait. When I put those on, I'll see if those can be switched out with other ones so that I can use the little ones here. They're not so bad, just a little big. Tape off. Ah. And there's the body with all the stuff on. Well, not the bridge. So next time, I will put together the neck and put it on the body and do some fretwork. I will see you in the next episode. Bye.